August 14th, 2025, 02 sour hours. The Pacific Ocean is quiet tonight. Waves lap gently against the steel hulls of an Iranian invasion fleet, making its way toward the U.S. mainland. Above them, clouds conceal the moonlight, and a cold mist hangs low over the swells. It's the kind of night where sound travels strangely, where every noise feels swallowed by the fog. Perfect for a mission that depends on stealth. Less than an hour earlier, 28 amphibious assault vessels slipped into the shipping lanes under the pretense of civilian traffic. But these are no ordinary ships. Each is loaded with armored steel and lethal firepower. 112 main battle tanks, each close to 60 tons, 54 armored personnel carriers, over 480 naval infantrymen, hand-picked for their expertise in night landings and rapid coastal assaults. The plan is bold. Land at a small fishing community on the Oregon coast, home to fewer than 4,000 people, defended only by a single, outdated coastal radar. Seize it quickly, fortify it, turn it into a forward operating base for deeper strikes inland. Iranian high command believes they've avoided American detection. Communications run through encrypted channels. Vessel formations mimic scattered cargo traffic, and all electronic signatures are minimized. From the bridge of the lead ship, the fleet commander studies landing charts and tidal forecasts, confident that no one is watching. He is wrong. The watcher above high in the stratosphere, nearly 64,000 feet above the ocean, an American stealth reconnaissance drone, invisible to radar, drifts silently. Its sensors capture every detail: the shape of each ship's deck, the heat signatures of idling tank engines, even the movement of crew on the open decks. Every 5 seconds, that data beams to U.S. Pacific Command in Pearl Harbor. On the coastline, missile batteries sit primed and ready, crews already briefed on their targets. Beneath the waves, a Virginia-class nuclear-powered attack submarine moves in parallel with the Iranian column. Overhead, 76 armed drones fly in lazy circles, keeping just far enough to remain unseen and unheard. Operation Deep Current. The moment the first Iranian ship crossed a pre-designated tracking point, 180 nautical miles from the coast, U.S. Naval Command initiated Operation Deep Current, a precision ambush protocol developed for one purpose: eliminate amphibious invasion forces before they ever reach land. Centers on a single concept: the killbox. A 20 nautical mile wide, 33 mile long stretch of ocean has been pre-mapped into overlapping arcs of fire from land, air, and sea. Once the fleet enters that corridor, there will be no safe escape route. 3 strike elements are already in place. 1. Air power, 76 MQ-29 Skyfang UAVs, each carrying 2 550-pound precision-guided bombs with armor-piercing capability. 2. Sea power, a Virginia-class submarine running silent at 26 knots, armed with 40 Mk-50 heavyweight torpedoes and 10 long-range cruise missiles. 3. Land-based firepower, 2 coastal missile batteries, each with 13 Harpoon Block 2+ anti-ship missiles. Each warhead carries nearly 500 pounds of high-explosive payload, capable of cutting through a warship's hull in a single strike. Into the noose. From the perspective of the Iranian fleet, the ocean appears empty. Radar shows no aircraft, no ships, no threats. They believe they've maintained the element of surprise. Crews prepare to launch their amphibious vehicles the moment they reach the shallows. Inside the U.S. Operations Center at Pearl Harbor, the enemy fleet is tracked across massive wall-sized displays. Speed, heading, wind speed, wave height, heat signatures. Every variable updates in real time. A quick calculation shows the fleet will enter the killbox in 27 minutes. The order comes down from command: hold fire, let them commit fully. The first strike. At 02:41:07, a burst of encrypted commands races skyward. Each Skyfang drone receives its target assignment and locks on using a combination of laser guidance and infrared imaging. At 02:41:15, the first wave is unleashed. 152 precision-guided bombs begin their rapid descent from nearly 8 miles above the ocean's surface. They fall fast, adjusting their fins in real time to correct trajectory, each designed to penetrate armored decks before detonating. The effect is instantaneous and devastating. The lead ship vanishes in a violent fireball, secondary explosions from its ammunition stores sending steel fragments hundreds of meters into the air. A second ship is split open along its midsection, its armored vehicles tumbling into the black water. Shockwaves ripple outward, tossing sailors overboard and tearing communications antennas from their mounts. Chaos and collapse. Within seconds, the perfect Iranian formation begins to break apart. Ships turn sharply to avoid burning wrecks, but in doing so, they expose their flanks to attack. Defensive firing arcs overlap, and confusion spreads across the fleet. Beneath the waves, the Virginia-class submarine moves into striking position. On shore, missile batteries prepare for launch. Overhead, drones circle back for a second pass. The trap has sprung, and the Iranian fleet's gamble is unraveling fast. The second wave. At 02:43:02, the second strike group began its deadly run. High above the Pacific's cold, dark surface, the UAVs banked in formation, their composite wings glinting faintly in the moonlight. Another 160 precision-guided bombs separated from their pylons and plunged silently at first, then screaming through the mist toward the center and rear of the Iranian formation. When they struck, the results were apocalyptic. Radar arrays were sheared away like tin foil, command bridges were shredded into twisted cages of steel, and ammunition lockers erupted into orange fireballs that rolled skyward, scattering burning debris across the decks. Several ships suffered chain detonations, the blast of one explosion setting off fuel tanks or missile cells in the next. Diesel and jet fuel spilled into the water, igniting into roiling fire curtains that turned the fog into a shifting wall of orange light. By 02:43:50, less than a minute after the second wave began, 14 ships were either heavily listing, sinking by the stern, or engulfed in such intense flames that their silhouettes pulsed against the horizon like the glow of distant furnaces. Casualties were climbing. Over 180 Iranian Marines lay dead in the opening moments of this second strike, many killed instantly by concussive shockwaves, or trapped below decks as steel bulkheads twisted and collapsed. Others were sealed in compartments already flooding with icy seawater. USS North Dakota enters the fight, 11.8 nautical miles astern, deep beneath the surface. The USS North Dakota, a Virginia-class fast-attack submarine, lay in ambush. Its fire control systems, already tracking targets relayed by drone and satellite, locked onto 4 ships attempting to turn away from the kill zone. With a muffled, mechanical cough, 4 Mk-48 Mod 7 heavyweight torpedoes slid into the black water. Accelerating to 55 knots, they homed in, using advanced active-passive sonar, weaving past decoys and countermeasure bubbles. When they struck, the damage was surgical and final. The Mod 7's warhead detonated just beneath the keel, the structural spine of a ship. At that depth, the blast forced a massive gas bubble upward, breaking the back of the vessel. Pressure waves exceeding 500 psi tore through the hull plating, snapping beams like matchsticks. One target split clean in two, its bow and stern rising briefly before sliding under in a boiling froth of foam and oil. Another rolled onto its side, propellers clawing the air before vanishing, stern first, into the black. From detection to sinking, less than 90 seconds. Communications collapse. On encrypted Iranian naval channels, discipline dissolved into chaos. The tightly scripted landing plan, hundreds of lines of timing and maneuver instructions, broke apart under the weight of panicked voices. Multiple captains broadcast on the same frequency, shouting conflicting orders. Damage reports, position updates, and desperate calls for air cover piled over one another until the net was just a wall of static and half-finished cries for help. Some commanders, in a final gamble to avoid incoming torpedoes, steered toward shallow sandbars along the coast. It was a fatal mistake. Drones circling overhead tracked the movement instantly, vectoring in fresh munitions. The first vessel to beach itself was obliterated seconds later by a 500-pound GPS-guided bomb, the explosion scattering its bridge crew across the tide. Above, the UAV formations moved like a school of hunting sharks, circling, identifying stragglers, and striking without pause. The AI-assisted targeting systems reprioritized automatically. Any vessel that survived a hit was reassigned to the next available weapon. By 02:44:30, the once proud Iranian formation was no longer a wall of steel advancing toward the coast. It was a broken scatter of flaming wrecks, drifting aimlessly in an oil-slicked sea. And still, the U.S. coastal missile batteries had yet to fire a shot. The final blow. At 02:45 source, what remained of the Iranian fleet, barely a third of its original strength, turned south in full retreat. Turbines screamed at redline RPMs, throwing up long, foaming wakes in the moonlight. The crews knew escape was unlikely, but instinct drove them to run. They never stood a chance. Hidden along the coastline, buried in camouflaged emplacements, 2 U.S. missile batteries had been silently tracking the battle since its opening minute. Their launch tubes were positioned to create overlapping killboxes, zones from which no vessel could pass without being inside lethal range. The order came over secure comms: fire all tubes. Within 6 seconds, 24 RGM-84 Harpoon Block 2+ anti-ship missiles roared from their canisters, trailing fire. At 15 feet in length and weighing over 1,500 pounds, each harpoon carried a 488-pound, high-explosive warhead. Flying at Mach 0.85, just 15 feet above the wavetops, they skimmed under radar detection, their sea-skimming profile broken only in the final seconds as they pitched upward into terminal attack. Impacts came in rapid succession. One ship's forward magazine, crammed with over 20,000 rounds of 30mm and 125mm ammunition, went up in a blinding chain reaction, the bow shattering into fragments that rained down into the sea. Another harpoon bored through the engine compartment of an amphibious tank carrier, igniting 10,000 gallons of diesel fuel. The resulting fireball rolled skyward like a volcanic eruption, visible more than 14 miles away. No escape in the smoke. But the North Dakota was not finished. Coordinating in real time with UAV targeting feeds, the submarine pivoted to finish the job. Its vertical launch system spat out 2 Tomahawk Block V cruise missiles, each flying barely 100 feet above the ocean at high subsonic speed. These Tomahawks carried 1,000-pound penetrating warheads, engineered to punch through hardened decks before detonating deep inside. The results were decisive. One ship's keel snapped in half, midship, sending both ends rising before slipping beneath the waves. Another rolled hard to port and capsized within minutes, its propellers spinning briefly above the surface before vanishing. Overhead, the last 20 drones shifted to a different role. Swapping their heavy bombs for AGM-114R Hellfire missiles, they began hunting the smaller craft. Lifeboats, assault rafts, and fast attack boats ferrying surviving Marines toward shore. Each 100-pound Hellfire, tipped with a shaped charge, cut through aluminum hulls like paper. Survivors still in the water saw streaks of flame arc low across the waves, ending in short, sharp flashes. By 02:48, the last organized Iranian vessel was gone. Aftermath. The tally was brutal. 26 ships destroyed outright at sea, 4 more crippled and later scuttled. Every tank, every armored personnel carrier, and hundreds of tons of ammunition were lost to the deep. Over 300 Iranian Marines killed. About 200 survivors pulled from the frigid 56-degree Pacific and taken prisoner. From the first bomb to the final missile impact, the battle had lasted less than 6 minutes. The sea fell quiet once more. The only sounds were the hiss of burning wreckage, the creak of twisted steel settling into the waves, and the low, steady thrum of American turbines fading toward home. By 0310, MH-60R Seahawk helicopters hovered above the debris field, Navy recovery boats weaving through slicks of diesel and floating wreckage to haul survivors aboard. Many were shivering violently from hypothermia, some with burns so severe their uniforms had fused to their skin, others bleeding from deep shrapnel wounds. Strategic consequences. The material loss was staggering. 30 warships, 120 main battle tanks, 60 armored personnel carriers, all now lying in twisted heaps across 40 square miles of seabed. But the real damage was to credibility. Among the prisoners were 3 senior Iranian naval officers carrying encrypted command tablets. Within 36 hours, U.S. cyber units had cracked their codes, uncovering detailed plans for 2 more amphibious assaults on other stretches of the U.S. coastline. Those operations were canceled before their ships ever left port. Satellite images released by the Pentagon 18 hours after the battle showed the true scale of the carnage. Oil slicks, stretching more than 5 nautical miles. Debris fields like confetti scattered across the sea. Black smoke plumes visible from space. News networks ran the footage on loop. Analysts compared the engagement to the most decisive naval defeats of the 20th century. In Tehran, leadership scrambled for an explanation that might soften the blow. In Washington, the message was calculated and unmistakable. Any force approaching U.S. shores with hostile intent would face an instant, layered, overwhelming response. Operation Black Tide was over, but its shockwaves had just begun.